All right, we've got our game working, at least part of the way. We've got the class, you can create new instances of the class, and you can start asking questions and getting responses. Now, I want to add some additional functionality here so that when the user closes out, they end the game, I want to take all the questions that they've asked and I want to export them or write them out to a CSV file. So we're going to create an additional method here and do a little bit more tweaking to get all of those questions. All right, so a bit more code here. So I'm going to get my big fat head out of the way. There we go. And we're going to create another method within this class. So I'm going to drop down below my start game method. Let's get out of that one. Back, back, back. There we go. And just to create some space here, put that up on my screen. There we go. Oh, one too many. All right, so I'm going to define this new method. It's going to be private once again. I don't want users to get quick, easy access to it. This is just internal within the class to do its functionality. And I'm going to call it write_questions. And it's going to contain self. All right. So now within here, this is going to look familiar. You've done this before. We're going to write to a CSV file. So I'm going to create a new variable here, and I am going to open a file. This is one that is available to you. It's a really simple one. It's just called magic_questions, and it is a CSV file. Now I'm going to put it in append mode because I want to be able to append additional records to it. And I'm going to bring in the new line and make it equal to nothing. Now that's important. I don't think we talked about that one earlier. A new line equals nothing. When you use the right row method, we'll see that in a little bit. We talked about it earlier. It tries to put an empty line in between records. So to stop that from happening, we'll say new line equals nothing. We're not going to put a new line in there. All right. So now, next part is I'm going to create a writer. This is all taking advantage of the CSV that we imported earlier. And I'm going to write to the file called F. You can be more explicit with that if I like to. Call it questions file or whatever you like to. So now I'm going to create a loop where we're just going to start writing the questions. Well, for each Q and self._m questions, you recall that m questions, where is it at? Right here is an empty list. Ooh, it's an empty list. We need to start putting stuff in there. But eventually I want to be able to write the contents of that empty list out to the CSV file. So we'll say for each question in there, we are going to take the writer and we're going to write a row. Oop. Write row. And we're going to write out Q. And we are going to close the file when we're all done. All right. So a little bit within this method called write questions, we are going to open up the magic questions CSV file. Remember, that's available at the beginning of this section of this project. You can download that and use it. You can even create your own if you like as well. Then we'll get into the write object within CSV, and it's going to write to the file that we opened there. And then we're going to create a loop to be able to write out each of the questions within that question list. Now remember, our question list is currently empty. There's nothing in it. Well, you know what? Each time the user asks a question, I want to print it out. I want to print that, or I want to store that inside that variable. So looking back at my start game method, we've got our logic here where if it's nothing, then we exit the system. If it is something, then we print out the response. Well, if it is something, not only do I want to print out the response, but I am also going to append to that empty list, I'm going to append the question that was asked. So we will append, and the quest is mquest. Remember the input that we got from the user, mquest, and there we go. So now every time they ask a question, a valid question, we will append it to that list, that empty list inside of our init function, and then our write questions we'll do the magic and we'll write each of the questions into the CSV file. Now this one, much like our start game method, we need to make a call to it. Well, I want to start writing all the questions to magicquestions.csv at the very end when they exit the system. So back into my logic, if mquest is equal to nothing, then we'll thank him for playing, and then we will make a call to that new function called write underscore questions. All right. So there's a bit going on in here. Always a good idea to comment your code. I'm not going to put it in there now so you don't have to watch me, but always a good idea to start putting comments inside your code, and that way you can kind of figure out what's going on in here. But we've got our Magic 8-Ball class, we've got the initialize function, we've got the start game that does the bulk of the work, the loop, and we've got some additional functionality in there, another private method, write questions, that writes out to the CSV file. So we're taking all of the stuff that we've learned up to this point, and we're starting to build something bigger, a class that we can then create instances of and play the Magic 8-Ball game. So study through this one, make sure it feels good, compare it to what you've got there, or if you're just starting out, get it done yourself, and then we'll take a look at the next one and we'll try it out and see the final outcome.